Welcome to another episode of the Embrace Equity podcast, where we explore topics related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. In this podcast episode, we will explore the important role that men can play in promoting gender equity. We have with us today VP Shared Services, Probal Ghosh. Welcome, sir. Gender equity is a critical issue that affects everyone, so let's dive in. Our first question is, what is your overview on gender equity and why is it important?
Yeah, so when we talk of gender equity, to me it is more of a thought process rather to say a way of life which establishes a healthy society. It's more of having more uncluttered minds and higher thoughts to make the world a better place to work, where all the genders can work together in a very environment which is very conducive to work, the workplace. It refers to when we talk about it, it refers to the fairness and the justice in the way we distribute our resources, the opportunities, and the privileges among the various individuals, irrespective of whichever gender they belong to. It also recognizes the very existence of gender based discrimination and bias that is existing in the society and how it aims to eliminate them by ensuring that all individuals of whichever gender they belong to they get an equal access to the opportunity resources and the rights wherever they're working in a workplace. So gender equity goes beyond treating men and women equally. It also considers the different needs, the experiences, the challenges which is faced by every individual who identify with the non-binary genders. And this also means that gender equity seeks to create equal or a level playing ground for everyone, regarding of whichever gender they belong to. I think this is what, in short, I would like to reflect upon.
Moving on, sir, what is your understanding towards gender bias? There are various forms of gender bias that exist in our society, including unconscious bias, microaggressions, and stereotypes.
So, if you look back today, even after we have been having a lot of changes in many policies, and at Tata Steel, I believe we have been pioneer. We have been pioneering in many changes, which is more forward-looking as far as the policy is concerned, focusing on gender equality to be now gender equity to be more precise, which normally empowers any gender to excel in their workplace. It's more of based on their capabilities, and quite often we come across instances where gender bias and stereotypes have significantly played or impacted the whole process of hiring in the past, in fact the career development and also the career progression in the workplace. Perhaps in the yesteryears the workplace may not have been that conducive, for the environment not have been that healthy, but I think over the period of time, there is a substantial change in the mindset with the new generations coming in. I see the way the acceptance limit is also increasing. So, for instances, if I look at the when we are hiring people, there may be some assumptions about. We used to have assumptions, or perhaps there were some assumptions about women abilities based on some of the stereotypes, like such as they might be more emotional, they might be less softer, perhaps they are less assertive than the men. But I believe that I have seen, at least in my career, I have seen many women who have risen as big leadership also. It's not so. But obviously, that's how the environment has grown, has been. In addition to those, women and people of other gender minorities may be overlooked for promotion or leadership roles. Perhaps that might have led to the leading to career stagnation. But again, I am seeing a massive, great, quite a big improvement or change, transformation in the way the organization is being moving, and the mindset, the leadership mindset is changing. So is the people below up to the on the working level. There is a sea change in which the acceptance is there, which is a good thing to happen. This transformation, and that still have been a pioneer and all these things. Another area where this can be seen is perhaps the remuneration, where it used to be seen that women used to be paid perhaps less for doing the same job. but certain jobs and industries may be perceived as more appropriate for from one gender than the other, which might have led to a gender segregation in the workplace, right? For some softer sectors, which might have been considered as a better place for women. But perhaps in the years before, manufacturing was always thought to be a more difficult sector for women to work. And also the rules and regulation, the policies was not there. Perhaps, for a person, for a woman to work, because she could only work at on a particular shift, and there was no provision to work in a B or C. So obviously, managing round the clock availability of a women workforce was difficult. So perhaps this also could have led to some of the perceptions. There is also a prevalent perception that women at a certain age, obviously that is a need of the hour. There could be some need on parenting and caregiving responsibilities, which can affect their career progression. But again, these are all myths. I have seen women doing work, and they have been managing both workplace and home very well effectively. And in fact, they are doing much better. And and this all these things perhaps in the past might have led to workplace discrimination. But as I said, as I'm seeing in Tata Steel, time and again, I'm seeing a huge change which is happening for good. And with the directive of having 25% women in our workplace, and which is being driven from top, and I think the entire organization is working in that direction. We are seeing that the thought process is getting embedded in the mind of people, and we are working more on ensuring how the infrastructures are being, how the facilities are getting more amenable, how are we creating a conducive culture, how are we also facilitating and supporting them at the workplace, not leaving them there go and try out. So that's a lot of handholding is also required, working with the men and women and ensuring that they get a good opportunity to also present themselves. Many times, it also happens that they do not get opportunity to talk. So it's our responsibility as leaders to create, understand that, and create those opportunities where they can also put up their voice, and that should be heard. More you hear them, more they will come up with better ideas, and that's how we can create a more better atmosphere for work.
Thank you, sir. Um, what do you think about allies, and what role do you think they can play in promoting gender equity? How can they advocate change in their personal and professional lives?
So, if you look at the definition of ally, it's more of an individual who stands up for a person that is targeted or discriminated against a bias on their identity, right? So, to me, an ally works to end this oppression by supporting, facilitating, advocating for the people who are maybe stigmatized or who has been treated unfairly. So this is where an ally plays a very important role. Now, if I look back and talk about our organization, I think each and as I said before, each and every person, each and every employee has a very important role to play, and everyone needs to play a role of an ally, right? You need to raise your voice for what is right. If something is not been done in the right perspective, you need to confront it and bring forth the right way of doing it, right? You need to keep supporting each other. Unless you support each other, if you facilitate each other, you will never create that sort of a environment which is which brings forth all these things which we are planning, which we are trying to pioneer. We always know that silence kills, So we need to raise our voice. We need to talk. We need to do and get involved if when we see that something is not being done in the right perspective, right? So that's where I think the role comes up very well, very importantly. And one has to know what are our rights, and accordingly, we must also take the responsibility of not only, as I said before, but also see how do we continuously educate the current generation, also work with the next generation because they are the future. As we have to create a organization for future, we need to see how do we work towards that. So promoting gender equity in the workplace requires a lot of efforts from each one and every individual, right? It is vital to address the gender biases and the stereotypes that exist today. We need to promote more and more inclusive policies and practices, provide better opportunities, in fact, equal opportunities for career development and advancement for all genders. We need to constantly monitor, guide them, look after them, and ensure that when they are back at the workplace, they have been treated fairly and equally. And this has to percolate deep down, that's a chain to the last man in the organization. That's also the responsibility of the leadership.
Thank you, sir, for your insights. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Embrace Equity podcast. Join us next time as we continue our conversation on equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Thank you.